going to go. And thanks to ASBAS for setting this up. I think it's great that you go out and you support small and medium businesses in Australia by doing this. It's really, really, really great. Guys, bit of bad news. I was born a Kiwi. I suppose you're always a Kiwi, but never mind. I was born a Kiwi, and I never finished high school. At the age of 14, I had a bit of a run-in with the teacher one day, and my father was called in on a very eventful day. I left school. And as you did in those days, my father rang his local Lions Club members, and the very next morning I started as an electrician, tradesman electrician, at the age of 14, fully qualified by the time I was 17. I then put a pack on my back and went to Australia, and as I travelled around and spent the next 10 years just travelling around Australia, worked for some really bad employers, worked for some good ones, but worked out a lot of people skills that I was to use later on when I was in business. And then in my late 20s, I started my first business. I'm going to come back and talk about that shortly, what that business was and where it went and what was wrong with it and what I did about it. But coming back to where I am here, there are 4 seminars in this. There's 4 webinars in this session that I'm going to run. Today, I'm going to talk about the mindset of being in business. I help a lot of businesses, and I see this over and over again. I see people that aren't quite thinking the right way to make the business fire. And at the end of the day, hopefully that's what you're going to get when you take away with after my little story today. Webinar number 2 is going to be growth strategies. Strategies that I use to grow the MiniMovers business. That grew from $200 in a ute to just on $30 million turnover and 500 staff, and we actually owned about 140 vehicles. We're going to talk about that. It peaked up and then it peaked down, and I'll talk about why it peaked and why it had a downward slide after that. It's still going strong today. I don't own it anymore. I stepped out of it about 18 months ago, but I'll tell that story. And that's around growth strategies, how I actually managed to grow it, real practical things around growing it. The 3rd seminar is going to be about staying ahead of the competitors and change. And it's going to talk about what happened when the GFC hit and the massive great change that happened in our industry then, and what we did about it and how we saved our business and went on to a next stage in my life. And I'll talk about that because it's very relevant today with COVID. There's some businesses right now are firing on all cylinders, and some are burning. And this change thing is quite a big thing and hard to handle if you don't quite understand it. But it's been around for a long time. Change has been happening. It's not new, and business people need to go with it and understand it and be prepared for it. And I'll talk about that and what that did in my life in the 3rd seminar. And the last one I'm going to talk about is really, I think, critical to all businesses, particularly businesses in the service sector. And that is that I'm going to talk about people, how to get the right people on the bus, and how to get them rowing in the right direction, or the direction that you want to row them in, and how I do that and how I've done that in my businesses. And it's critical because I see a lot of small micro businesses. One of the biggest challenges they have is getting the right employees, getting the right structures, whether it's employees, subcontractors, or somebody just selling your services. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. You just got to get that right. If you don't get it right in your business, you're going to have trouble. So I'm going to talk about that and things that went horribly wrong and things that went right for me on my little journey through business today. So today, why are we in business? Well, as I said, I had that background of not doing well at school. It kicks your self-esteem pretty bad. It did to me at the time, but I went on and I did a trade, got taught to do a trade, and it was pretty rough stuff in those days. I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I did it. And then at the age of 17, I decided to come to Australia on my own with very little money. And I basically hitchhiked around Australia, as I said, for 10 years, doing all sorts of jobs, working for some really bad ones and some really good ones. And it's really important that you understand in life that when you have bad experiences, they are teaching you something for the future. You learn from everything that happens to you. So then at the age of 28, I was in Brisbane, Australia. I was working for Woolworths in the warehouse as a forklift driver. They had decided that they were going to do a trainee management program. So they went to their staff and said, and invited people to apply to be a trainee manager. I decided I wanted to do that. So I applied, and I went and sat in a classroom with a whole lot of other employees, and they did what I now know as a psych test. And I was the first person they called out of the room and told straight to my face that I'm not suitable for management and go back onto my forklift. The joke at the time is that insulted me and got me motivated to step out of being an employee and starting a business. What I know now, and of course today where I am in businesses, I have quite a number of businesses today, I think 6 businesses, and my skills today is getting all the right management team in place. I would never hire me as a manager. I want to change everything. I want to make everything better all the time, and you really want managers just to run set processes and do it the way you want it done. And I'm not like that at all, and that's why the psych test threw me out, I suspect. We'll come back to that later. Anyway, I got chucked out of that, so I decided I'd become a second-hand dealer. I went to an auction the following weekend, and I was at the auction and I watched people buying stuff, and some guy told me, oh, they're dealers, they buy here and they sell it and everything else. And I thought, oh, that's not a good idea, I'll start doing that. So without any background at all, I started doing it. I met a guy very, very shortly afterwards who said to me, the secret to second-hand dealing is buy low and sell for what it's worth. You buy from people who don't want to go around selling it privately. So you don't buy from poor people, you buy from people who are busy and don't have the time to sell it, and then you sell it and you buy it at a low price and then you sell it. So I took that on board, and I was very, very successful at buying and selling, being a second-hand dealer. Very, very successful indeed. And I over a 6-year period, I managed to develop 3 second-hand shops in Brisbane. And I'd become the head of the Second-Hand Dealers Guild. We'd helped negotiate a new Act of Parliament to cover the industry. And I was a bit of a hero there. I had leased a new car. I was running around with that. I started paying a house off. I started a family. And from the outside world, it looked like I was really, really successful at what I was doing. There was one little problem. My shops were open 7 days a week. In fact, they're only closed on Anzac Day and Christmas Day. And I was working 7 days a week. I was working 90 hours a week. And at the end of the day, all I was earning was what my staff were earning, who were on wages at 40 hours a week. Now, I wasn't going broke. I just wasn't earning anything like what the energy was I was putting into this. So 6 years later, at the age of 34, for the very first time in my life, I sat down and thought about it very, very carefully. And I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I in business? What, because we go through life, we sort of follow this path, and we get indoctrinated with sort of core beliefs that, get a good education, get a good job. Nobody says own a business. Nobody says that at all. And nobody says that at all. And we just follow that path. We just do what's expected of us. At no stage do we think about why we're in business. Now, this may sound mind-shattering. It's what happened to me. And it's saying I sat down and I was just stewing this over my brain when one night watching TV, I suddenly realized what Mike O'Hagan, wants out of life, me the person. And I like the idea of a big car, a big house, a big boat, and a jet style lifestyle. And I figured out, that's what I'm after. That's why I'm yearning. That's why I'm getting angry. I'm not getting to that lifestyle. And it's actually that lifestyle I yearn. And my family, they come along for the ride. That's good. That's where it's at. But really, at the end of the day, the only reason we're working in this environment is to feed our lifestyle. And it's about the lifestyle. So the lifestyle is not working 90 hours a week, earning the same money amount of staff who are only working 38 hours a week. That's not lifestyle. That's crazy. It's very close to the definition of stupidity. So I sat down and I thought, what do I need to do with my business to achieve that lifestyle? And what I worked out was that I need my business to do 2 things for me. It needed to produce an awful lot of cash every week, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a week income, and allow me the freedom to choose how I spend my time every day. So I sat down and I thought about that, and I thought, what I need is I need a business I need to turn it into a machine. I need to build a system and process around it. And I need it to, the ultimate goal is very simply to feed me and my family a beautiful lifestyle. And for that, I needed an awful lot of cash coming in every day and the freedom to choose how I spend my time. Now, at that stage in business, I'd started studying McDonald's. I'd read the books and watched a couple of things about it. And I looked at the systems and the processes of McDonald's. Now, today I know that as a type of entrepreneur, I'm what they call a systemizer and a duplicator. I systemize things and I duplicate them. That's what McDonald's was very, very good at doing. If you look at McDonald's, you'll see a restaurant chain, but it's a restaurant chain that really doesn't hire chefs. It doesn't hire anybody trained in hospitality. All it does is hire, in Australia, it just hires our kids. And they are able to get them to behave and to produce. And at the end of the day, the reason they're doing all that is to get consistency. Everything always the same, exactly the same way, consistency, a little machine over and over again. And I think that's the key to the service sector. The service, anything in the service sector where you're serving people, is all about getting a good quality product and getting consistency. And then that drives the market, that people talk about you, and away you go. It grows very, very well. So I started playing with ideas. I started messing around with and I came up with I still had the shops. I still had my 3 shops. I was still working 90 hours a week. I was doing all that, but I was looking for another idea. I looked at the secondhand shops and I decided it was very, very difficult to systemize them. I couldn't systemize buying. Selling was easy. I hired people to sell. That was very, very easy, but nobody brought as mean as I did with my own money. You can give people money and say, go forth and buy things or purchase things, but they'll never do it as mean as what I did it with my, as you would do it. It just wouldn't happen. And I couldn't systemize that bit of it. So I messed around. I came up with lots of crazy ideas. I did some business courses, built some business plans, and I was all over the place. And one day, by absolute accident, I had a friend tell me about a really bad experience they had moving house, and they'd moved in the same street, for one house further down the same street. And when they were telling me about the story, I was thinking, oh, well, that's a bit silly. Why did they do it that way? And that was, in those days, this is 35 years ago, guys. 35 years ago, if you wanted to move, the only way you could do it was ring a removal company, and they would send a salesperson out to your house, no matter what you had to move. And the salesperson would have a good look at it all, write a big list out, it'd be there for ages, go away, convert it to a fixed price, ring you back with the fixed price, upsell you with a couple of extra products like insurance and boxes or whatever. And that was it. It was the only way you can move. And it was a bit crazy because when you're moving just up the road, short distances, it was like overkill. It was costing thousands of dollars when really the truck's only there for a few hours with a couple of guys. And if you cost that out, there's a huge gap in it. So I noticed that nobody was doing short distance moving. And then I had an absolute thing that happened in my life that just won an opportunity that just changes everything. I came across some students at University of Queensland who were doing MBAs, and they needed live subjects to do a business planning session on. Now, so this is very much like ASBAS and the opportunity that the government's creating. For free, they were prepared to do the business research, and they went off, and I put it to them. They went off and did quite a bit of research, came back with a report that was about an inch thick, of which 99.9% was absolutely useless to me. But right in the first summary at the start was the bit that got me, that I saw the light. And what they did was they said this. They said that 90% of people in Australia move less than 15 kilometres. They said of that 95%, 78% of them move themselves. So when you look at it, the industry only has about 10, the whole removal industry, which by the way does long distance interstate overseas moving, but doesn't really like or do short distance moving. They have 10% of the market, and the other 90% of the market was available for somebody to come and invent a better service. And I just saw that as the guide. What I needed to do was develop a product that was an absolute competition to them moving themselves. And that's what I set about doing. I set about focusing on developing a specific way to move short distance, which worked for everybody. And in the next seminar, I'm going to talk about how I did that, how I rose that, how I took that idea and then built it, systemized it. I bootstrapped it. I didn't borrow any money, and I used cash for everything. I grew everything up as I went along. So, excuse me. So from that story, I've got some little points here that I like to go through. And number one is keep your current income. When you've got an idea and you need to change or you need to go to the next thing, keep your current income. Keep whatever it is you're doing and start your venture on the side and let it grow up and let it roll over the top of what you're currently doing. So don't bet the farm, do it in an affordable way. So I have this thing called conceive, test, measure, duplicate. I think what you do is you come up with an idea and then you figure out a way to test it in an affordable way. And when you go out and test it, if it works, you do it more. If it doesn't work, you don't do it anymore or you change it. And I don't think you can sit down and build a forward plan for a lot of things. I think you've got to come up with an idea, test it. And obviously quite often it's things that, you know, let's produce this. Okay, well, but will anybody buy it? So what we'll do is we'll act like we've got it, go to the market, see if we can attract some interest from some sales, then go back and build it. So test it in an affordable way. And then if it works, do it more. Be very careful with management and planning. MBAs are designed to manage a business. They're not designed to own a business. There's a distinct difference between the two. And I think owning a business is where I'm at. I'm an entrepreneur. I sit on the business. My goal is to own the business. It's not to work in it. I learned that lesson from my very first business. Getting trapped into working in your business is basically a way to owning a job. And I sort of a bit of a believer that you either own a job or you own a business. A business works for you, and a job is something that you have to work in. And you know, the first job, my first businesses, obviously I was trapped in them. I was working in them. I needed to get out of that and develop anything. You know, MiniMovers grew and grew dramatically because I set out to build a big business from day one. Now think that through very carefully, because when I talk to people about why you're in business, I don't hear that. I hear it because, oh, it's my passion. Well, really? Moving furniture is not my passion. Being in business is my passion. Making money is my passion, but not moving furniture. It's just, you know, why are you in business? Why are you doing this? And I know why I was doing it, or why I still do it today. I'm doing it because I have a lovely lifestyle. It fuels my lifestyle. Yeah, I still work and I still do seminars and I talk to people because I love it. I enjoy the life, but it grew on me as I went into it. So it's about that. So be careful of the MBA thing. The MBA thing can be quite dangerous. It's really a focus. The whole MBA program in most universities is designed specifically to create senior management in corporate business. And corporate business is very, very different than small and medium enterprises, extremely different business model at all. SME models have a tendency to work on tacit knowledge, the internal knowledge of a team of people or a group of people. Yes, there are some systems and processes, I got that, but there's a lot of tacit knowledge in there, where corporate businesses work on very, very structured processes and systems. Managing the two of them are very, very different. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our systems teach the wrong model to the wrong people. So focus on being an owner, not a manager as such, or watch out what you are managing. Look past what you know. We have tunnel vision. We have beliefs about certain things, and a lot of stuff we believe is wrong. I think that was my lesson going into starting my first business. I started my first business because I wanted to be my own boss. I achieved that quite well 6 years later. I was definitely my own boss, but it was a job. So I think you've got to look past what you know, look around you. I've got 6 businesses on the go at the moment. I chair the boards of them. They're very, all except one, are very, very successful. One has crashed because of COVID, but they're very successful, they're growing. The interesting thing about that is I know very, very little about the actual products they sell. It's not my thing. I can see a market need and I can see how we can address that market need, and I sit above it and help process it through, help build sales, help build something to service, something to provide the service or the product, and something to sell it, and work on the systems above it. And at that level, I can make it grow a lot faster, a lot quicker than I can if I roll my sleeves up and get stuck inside the business. So look right past what you need. You don't need to know the actual product forwards, backwards, upside down. You need to be able to see the market need, the niche in the market, or the gap in the market that you can fill. You need to be able to talk, like I can talk about, how many people move short distances, what they're actually doing at the moment, they're moving themselves, and how we need to be. That's our competitor. It's not the other removal companies. Our competitor is simply people moving themselves, and how we have to align our product specifically into that to be a competitor with that. And you'll see that. And if you look at the MiniMovers marketing many years ago, you'll see that it was all about, we let you help. The more you do, it's less it's going to cost you. That's specifically us saying, we'll compete with you moving yourself. We'll put the bits that you're missing, the truck and the equipment, and a couple of strappy guys that really know how to handle the stuff. We'll provide those, but you can do the other bits if you want to. Because we know that if you don't, you're going to do it yourself, your competitor. Look for opportunities. There are lots and lots of opportunities everywhere. I've got to tell you that I'm seeing opportunities everywhere. And later on, if any of you want some opportunities or know where they are, you're happy to contact me. I'm happy to knock some ideas around about what I'm seeing. But let me tell you that during periods of change, during the GFC, the global financial crisis back in 2008 and 2009, or now COVID in 2020, those massive changes in the world create huge opportunities for businesses to follow. And when I talk about dealing with change in the third webinar, the message will come through that, if you're in a market that is definitely fractured and under threat, you better move. You can't stay there. And sitting there doing nothing and looking at it with starry eyes is not going to help. So we'll talk about that. But and the interesting thing is, whilst the market you're in may have crashed or be under threat, I'll guarantee you there's a massive change just there. All you got to do is pivot round and follow that new opportunity. So there are lots of opportunities out there in business. I think business is easy. The opportunity bit is the easy bit. The hard bit's the drive and the push to make it work. And that comes from, in my case, this burning desire inside me to have a certain lifestyle. And then the methodology that I've got, which is I'll find something, I'll systemize it and process it, I'll get others to do it to produce the income I need for my lifestyle. So without spending money or borrowing money, I very rarely or never borrow money. I'm very, very conservative with borrowing. We are extremely conservative with borrowing money. I don't. In fact, today I have absolutely no debt whatsoever. Haven't done for quite a number of years. But without borrowing money, I don't like borrowing money. But in an affordable way, you need to test whatever your idea is if it's going to work. And the key is that only commit and push money into what you've actually proven will work. And that's a huge factor. Only commit and push money into what you've proven will work, right? So what's interesting about me is they look at me and say, oh, look at him, he's successful, he's got all these successful businesses. Let me give you a little secret. What you don't see was what ended up on the cutting room floor. You don't see the crazy kooky ideas I came up with that I spent a few $100s testing to see if they're going to work, which definitely wouldn't work, bombed, so I dropped them and went on to something else. You're not seeing the trail of things behind me. Now, they're not failures to me. The things that I tried that didn't work. I learned this a long time ago. I don't get into negativity. I'm probably one of the most positive people you can ever come across. I just keep going at it, and then I learn that if the horse is dead, you better get off and find another one, okay? And that's at some stage you just move on. And to me, they're simply things that I tried that didn't work, and I just move on. And it's interesting because I often have people come to me and say, what about this? I go, oh, no, it's not going to work. And they like, geez, being very judgmental. Trust me, I've tried it. That's why I don't know it. I know it's not going to work. So it's all from experience. We do learn from our experiences. Be aware that most things I do don't work. You kill and change, as I said. Once you've found the thing that's going to work, what you've got to then do is start to develop processes. And you need to develop processes for each solution. And in most businesses, in most businesses, I break the business thinking into 3 different areas. The first area is, I think, the most important one in some ways, is getting customers. So when I've developed a service or a product, then I think, okay, who are the customers and how can I get them? How can I attract my attention? How can we get the message out there, and how can we get them to buy? And getting customers is a distinct area that I look at, and I look at it solely in that area. The second area, and the second important area, is servicing those customers. How can we service them? How can we do an outstanding job, a fantastic job, and so that they'll come back and buy more or tell other people about us? And the third area, which unfortunately is the area that a lot of business education and a lot of people concentrate on, and honestly, it's not the most important area, and you really need somebody to do it from day one, is all the administration and anything to do with the government. So anything to do with the government, you hire an accountant or a bookkeeper to do all that. You don't want to know about it. You don't need to. Administration, paying your insurances and your licenses and your phone bills, and just hire somebody to do that. Hire them early in the piece, get that stuff out of your way, go back to focusing on getting customers and servicing the customers, because you're going to grow your business faster from that point of view than you will in counting money. You can't count money till you made a sale, guys. All right, so don't mess around with counting the money and planning how much money you're going to make until you work out how you're going to sell it. Sales is, you've got to develop a compelling offer. You've got to understand who your target is, what their problems are, what turns them on, and what they'll buy. And that's an ongoing, evolving, totally changing thing all the time. Comes back to what I said before, constantly changing, constantly evolving, constantly testing, trying new things. Sales is always like that. Sales is changing dramatically. Simple little story about that, and I'll probably tell it with later on with the MiniMovers story, but in 2007, MiniMovers spent $1.2 million in total in the Yellow Pages book. Now, we were working across major cities in Australia. We had multiple full-page ads. That's how you come. And that money was bringing in about $18 million worth of moves. And if you can imagine, 2007 was a pretty magic year. 2007, a little thing called the iPhone came out, and the world changed dramatically. Social stuff and all sorts of things came in behind it. And by 2009, Yellow Pages book wasn't worth the paper it's printed on. And we had to find a new way to get our first round of customers. So that's a little story about change. And if you're not changing and following the market, you'll end up in trouble. It's one of the factors that helped us end up in trouble with the GFC, was that factor. And we'll talk about that at my next webinar and how I dealt with it. You've got to focus on developing a team as well, a team that's really focused on what you need to achieve as a group. And you've got to enthuse them to do that way. You are leaders, right? You need to lead, and you need to say, this is where we're heading. We're not sure how we're going to get there, but we're going to have some fun, but that's where we're going to end up. All right. And then get people involved in that story and understand why it is that you're leading. And I'll talk more about how I motivated people with MiniMovers in the next one as well. But that's very, very important to understand that you are a leader and you need to push it up. Once you've got those 2 bits working, ramp it up and duplicate it. Systemize it, processes, build systems, duplicate. Happy to talk to anybody about how I go about that in detail. Some of it will come out later. But there's some really good resources around now to build systems or understand the theory of building systems. And by the way, you get your current staff to build the systems. You don't build them. You don't impose people to do things. You need others to do it. It needs to come from within. We're happy to talk about that later and everything else. Now, watch the financial numbers. It's much easier to adjust profit after you've got cash coming in. Trust me. It's much easier to start a business to make some sales and then look at the profit and adjust it and twig it and deal with it. You need to adjust the financial numbers. You need to get good reports. You need to have instantaneous stuff. P&Ls and balance sheets are useless for running a business, totally useless. You need proper management sheets. When I was in the second-hand shops, every single Friday night, I'd sit down and build a report of exactly how much we sold this week, how much we purchased this week, and the cost of the goods that we sold, and we were able and put my quick wages against that in a very rough way to see where we're heading. Every single week I knew exactly where we're going. The P&Ls given to me at the end of the year when the accountant did them for the tax people were useless, absolutely useless, no good for running a business, too slow. By then the business had evolved and changed so much it wasn't funny. So it's about management reports. Nowadays computers can do it a lot better and a lot easier, but just get some good reports in. Cash is king, but not if there's no profit. So cash is king, but not if there's no profit. Profit rules, guys. We're about profit. You know, my current large business is very, very profitable, and it's because it's got owners and we're totally focused on profit. That's what it's about. Profit first, and then everything follows. And our team is important. Our people are important. I got all that. I hear all that. But trust me, your team and important. Your team and your people are not all that important. If you've got absolutely no profit, you've got a problem. So, profit first, cash, and then of course your people and everything. Well, evolve, stay with the trends, do 80% the same, 20% experimentations. Avoid, as I said, working in your business as a trap. And to me, focus on the end game. The end game is your lifestyle, and don't lose track of the fact that the end game is your lifestyle. The reason that we work, the only reason we work in this lovely country called Australia is for our lifestyle. And you know, there's a thing out there called unemployment. If you want to stay on unemployment, that's fine, but most of us don't. And the only reason we don't want to stay on unemployment is we don't like the lifestyle. So focus that and understand that, and then you'll build your business and you'll achieve what you need out of it. So business is just a money-making machine to feed a lifestyle. So I think, what are we doing now? We're going to go into questions and things like that?
That's right. Thank you, Mike. That was fantastic. Very insightful, Mike. You know, really, really amazing. I would like to invite all the advisors now to unmute yourself, turn on your video. We'll go into panelist style. But first things first, I guess, I would like to invite everyone to, number one, introduce yourself. And because the topic of this seminar is why am I in business, give us 2 sentences, if you don't mind, why you are doing what you're doing and why you are in your business. Dante, we'll start with you.
Originally got into business from coming from a media background where I saw media companies absolutely screwing over small businesses, and it made me very angry and very resentful. So I decided to actually put my money where my mouth is and do something about it and find ways for business to not be screwed over when it comes to media and marketing.
Oh, I love that. Sorry, and what do you offer? Sorry, what's as best service that you offer? Sorry, Dante.
So specifically in websites and e-commerce, and also as a Facebook lead trainer, I do a lot of work in the Facebook and Instagram platforms and across the new emerging platforms like TikTok and Pinterest as well.
Fantastic, absolutely. Cool. Tracy, let's go with you.
Why did I start business? I was a crap employee, to be perfectly honest. I was a bit like Mike and used to want to change everything. And so I was a rubbish employee. I'm a horrible boss too, ask me any day of the week. So why I'm still doing what I'm doing is I have always been in the emerging space of technology and marketing for small businesses. So Mike, apologies, I was one of the people that launched the iPhone that killed your Yellow Pages ads very quickly. So I've been doing that for 30 years, and it concerns me the speed that tech happens and the slow adaptation that business owners rely on this stuff. So I work predominantly with overcoming the overwhelm around utilizing and incorporating technology in their business, because once they understand it, they can get off the tools really quickly and actually start to focus on the bigger picture of creating profit. Mike, just knowledge bombs all over the place. So thank you for the presentation. What I do in Aspas is I help you overcome the overwhelm around technology, so I can pull you up, have a big look at the business and help you put some processes and procedures in place using some technology. And also with 30 years in digital marketing and sales, I'm able to kind of help you strategize around where to put some time and effort. Talking about new and emerging tech, I love Clubhouse and podcasting, so you can talk to me about that as well.
Awesome. Yes. All right. And Nathan, how are you doing?
Thanks, Agatha, and thanks, Mike, for a really thought-provoking talk there. For me, the reason I jumped into business was I was frustrated by the number of businesses that I saw that didn't look good. So their brand wasn't strong and they were spending a truckload of dollars on marketing and wondering why they were getting nowhere. And it was because their brand wasn't strong to start with. So I started a business called 7 Patterns, and we basically work with businesses, with governments and with not-for-profits to help them look good and to develop effective marketing strategies in order to reach their people. So feel free to reach out to me if I can be of any sort of assistance in the areas of branding, marketing, and strategy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nathan. And Josh, of course, last but not least, how about you?
Thanks, Agatha, and thank you, Mike, as well. That was a really great talk. I really appreciate your honesty. And there's one part that really resonated with me, which is a good transition for now, was when you talked about paying yourself and what you're getting paid for the hours. My background is in the hospitality industry and has been for 15 years. And it's no true statement that in that around paying themselves. And those were some of the holes that I found in small business and hospitality, is that for such a big industry around the world, there wasn't much support in overall business development, especially in the digital marketing space. So my consultancy is based around helping people build their digital presence, brand development, around a customer-centric focus, which is what the industry is all about, but still applying all those strategies, which are still relevant to all small business at the moment.
Thank you. That's fantastic. That's great, Josh. All right, we're just going to go right ahead with all these questions. They're coming fast and very cool because they're very good questions. Now, there's a question, I believe this is for Mike, and everyone else can definitely chip in. You are a really resilient person. How important is resilience today in small business?
You can only win if you're persistent.
Spot on.
You can only win if you're persistent. It doesn't matter what knocks you and what kicks you down. You just got to get up and keep on going in one direction. Sometimes you've got to learn to duck and weave a bit though, and I think that's in there as well. But persistence and resilience is absolutely vital. There's one of the problems we've got is that a lot of these things are oversimplified and they're actually complex. Everybody goes, why is he in business? And they expect me, why is he successful in business? They expect me to give you 1 or 2 or 3 reasons why I'm successful. And the reality is it's over 100 different factors working together. But there's little doubt that resilience or persistence is a huge, huge factor. And you're going to see it now. You're going to see some companies give up and just go away and some companies just swerve and move through the hole that's happening at the moment, you know. And that's what it's about. But you know, you can't win unless you kept going. All right.
That's very true. And anyone else want to add into that? It's I think resilience is such a big thing, especially due to what happened, of course, last year with the pandemic.
Yeah, I'll jump in with that one. I think I've had a lot of ups and downs with family when it comes to business. My first business failed. My second business failed to launch, and I got I guess the feedback from my family was like, "Oh, darling, you're not really a business person. You're better off when you're working a job. You know, it's what's comfortable for you." Now, coming from their perspective of people who've done nothing else but have jobs, that was a safe option for them, and I refused to believe that. So the resilience was what turned me around when even my family, who are my greatest supporters but my greatest enemies at the same time, are telling me that it's not going to happen. The resilience is going, no, I got this. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to keep going. I've failed to launch. I'm going to go again. So you've got to keep going. As Mike said, not everything he does and everything he's tried has worked. Some of it's failed. Some of it's failed to launch. Some of it has spectacularly gone well.
Oh, I love that. No, definitely. Okay, now we'll go to the next question. And this is a very interesting one. So from Ronwin, how much money or range or limit would you invest in testing an idea? And at what point or what trigger would you decide to cut it? That is, some things can take time to build. So what is the deciding factor for you that the idea will not work or will work?
It varies dramatically depending on what you're doing, but what you don't do is you never bet the farm, and whatever you do, you never bet the farm. So, you know, it's all a matter of who you are and where you are and the size of your wallet is nowadays as to what you consider. Right now, I'd probably drop 10 or 20 grand into an enterprise, and if it didn't work, it wouldn't worry me and it wouldn't affect me. But that's at my level. You know, when I first started, dropping $200 in was scary. It was on the edge, you know. So I even had to buy a mobile phone was an issue. So it depends on where you are and what level you're at. But the thing is that you've got to, I think the principle is more that you've got to test it before you build it, and you've got to test it somehow. Now, I've done some crazy things. Just a very quick story. I had a lady come to me one day several years ago. Her husband had unfortunately passed, but she'd got $1 million in an insurance payout. And her friends were telling her that she should go into business, and she wanted to build an executive retreat. And there was somebody in her life that said this lovely big house up the top of Mount Tambourine was ideal, and she should buy this house for an executive retreat. So she had gone on, and believe it or not, she'd gone somewhere to a program and built a business plan around the whole idea, and came to me with this written business plan. And I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. And I said, okay, well, let's just forget about the house and that thing. How are you going to get the customers for the executive retreat? And she said, oh, that's easy. And she flipped through to page 243 or whatever it was. And there was the little advertising plan about how they were going to put ads in certain magazines and get customers. I said, okay, look, you've got $1 million. So let's waste, say, $500 or maybe $1,000. Why don't you run some of those ads? Just have them to your phone number. Don't worry about it. And then when the people ring up, just apologize that you haven't yet built it. The silly people went crazy and they ran the ads before they need of. And that way you're going to know how the market's going to work for you. And she came back 3 months later and she said, you knew, didn't you? I said, what do you mean? She said, I didn't get one phone call. I said, yep. You need, before you build something, you need to know if someone's going to buy it. And if not only is someone going to buy it, but do you know how to get through to the market so they'll attract it? And if you don't know that bit, the rest of it isn't going to work.
Yeah, right? No, I love that.
Testing, okay. I quite often act like I've got it, try and sell it, and if nobody takes any interest, then I know it's not going to work.
Absolutely. You know, I might throw that one for Josh as well. Josh, based on your hospitality industry and you know, kind of, I know there's so many people having this type of, you know, amazing ideas, especially in, of course, food and culinary. What do you think about that? When, you know, how much money should we throw in and when do we get cut off and cut your losses, I guess?
Yeah, thanks, Agatha. Look, huge situation in the hospitality industry. People come in, you know, for business. You know, you have to have a love for business and a love for people. And a lot of people come into this industry with a dream. They see the other side of the fence and they see all the fun and they want to get involved in it. I've worked with a lot of cafes that are in a very saturated area, and they often need help with their brand development, business development across the board. The biggest thing is point of difference. It's the fact that when they say to me, we want to make the best coffee, I say, well, everyone makes the best coffee. What else do you do? Or we do this. Okay, everyone else does that around you. What else do you do? And it's just a fine-tooth comb through the entire process. The fact that it's a saturated market is a great thing, but you have to lead with the point of difference of your actual core product. And if you're not offering something, you're just going to get lost essentially in the mix. And we had a client in the CBD who had that same problem, and we're like, what are people coming in for? We said, oh, we had some people in offices come in to get some bulk food items for their office. I'm like, is anyone else doing that around that? And they said, no. I said, how often is that happening? And I said, 3 times a week. Cool, let's put together some packages for offers, platters, and see what takes off. And essentially that became its own separate arm to the business. So you've got to keep your eyes open, but you've just got to make sure that you are having a point of difference that differentiates you, and just research it, ask questions. It doesn't take a lot of money in any business, especially there's enough Facebook groups, there's enough LinkedIn support groups out there for you to ask questions and test the market.
Oh, thank you. No, that's a very good answer. Anyone else want to add anything on that before we move on to the next question? All good. All right. Okay. It's from Tristan here. Given you have exited MiniMovers, Mike, what's the next business opportunity you're exploring? Maybe you can share about this Show 360 and what you're up to.
Okay. I'm going to mention, well, we'll cover this, I think, in whatever it is, one of the other webinars coming up. But I've moved offshore. I've gone into the Philippines, and the Philippines has an extremely cheap labor, university qualified people with all sorts of degrees, probably about $120 a week in salaries and wages. And they're very smart and they speak English, and that's a massive opportunity. And I've gone in there and learned a lot about how to do it. Personally, I help other businesses set up teams up there. That's what I'm about. I've been running a business learning tour. They've been doing the principles we're talking about now and mixing it with the Philippines as well. That's the business that crashed with COVID, of course. Nobody's come to the Philippines at the moment. But I've helped with a couple of other very good friends. We've developed a business called Shore 360, which support Western businesses up there to build their own teams in their own space. And I'll talk a little bit about that opportunity later. But it's just where it is. It's a world now. The world's become very flat, very connected, and you're able to do this. And it's where the opportunity is. That's why I'm doing it.
Oh, no, that's absolutely great. And it's, able to, I guess, identify opportunity and pivot. There's one more question from Ronwin here. For people who are passionate about an idea, but the market is saturated, what advice would you give them before getting started? If they're keen to go ahead, sorry, yes.
I don't think any market's crowded. I think you can. When I entered the transport industry, everybody was absolutely aghast and said, "Oh, you don't get involved in transport. There's no money, blah blah blah." And I think any of them, you can go in and do whatever's being done now, but do it better, and you'll succeed. Right?
Yeah,
if you go in any market and do what's being done now, but do it better, and you will succeed. And interestingly, I've got to tell you, it's really risky to go and build something that's never been done before. So I think a lot of the failures I see are when they've come up with some great idea that sounds great, but nobody's ever done it. So the market doesn't know about it, and it's very hard to sell. So new ideas that are completely new, absolutely new, are very, very hard to get off the ground. But, I just did short distance furniture moving, and now we're doing what we call the BPO industry, and I've got another business in marketing and a few other things going. They're all basically fundamental core businesses, but what we're doing is better than anybody else, and that's where the key is.
Oh, I love it. And I think this is a question that everyone can answer here. What do you guys think with this oversaturated industry and businesses? How can we make it better? And, what advice would you give them before they get it started? Dante, do you want to start?
Yeah, so one of the areas I work in is SEO. Now, there's no more saturated area in digital marketing than SEO. Just look in this spam folder and you'll see 100,000 emails from people offering to get you on page 1 of Google, right? So what Mike was saying is actually great. You can either innovate with something new or you optimize. And I chose to optimize. So I take something which is already done pretty poorly and optimize it so it's really easy to access for a client, and then I niched it down to who is it that I actually want to help the most. So in overcrowded markets, they're overcrowded in a way that, yes, we're overcrowded with supermarkets, with Coles and Woolies and IGA and Foodland and all those entities, but there's plenty of smaller grocers and plenty of smaller niche providers who are making tons of money. In America, they like to call it the riches in the niches. So it doesn't make so much sense in Australia when we talk about niches, but there's lots of money to be made when you just optimize something that's done fairly broadly and bring it down, optimize it down, and then niche it down to a particular market that's got the money to spend, is willing to spend the money, and is currently not being served particularly well.
Oh, I love it. No, you're spot on. How about Nathan? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's spot on as well, Agatha. But I suppose in line with what Josh said earlier, the point of difference is huge. So as long as you've got a point of difference that you're able to obviously spend time marketing and communicating to people, that's what's going to cut through the saturation, to use the word that was in the question there. And at the end of the day, we need more businesses that are willing to get in and disrupt other businesses. That's what's going to continue to improve industries, continue to create jobs, and continue to grow our economy. I mean, I think that the biggest thing is the biggest thing to be mindful of is that many businesses get so set in their ways that they're not actually prepared for when disruption does come. So even when you enter into an industry, be prepared to continue to disrupt yourself in order to avoid being disrupted along the way.
Oh, I love that. That's very good. And Tracy, and do tell us about your book as well. But what do you think about that?
So I think we get fascinated by newism. We're always looking for new ideas, new things, new something, chasing the latest something, when honestly, if you allow yourself the time to look at the people that have been there and done that, you can often find, as Dante said, that little tweak that could be made that will create a whole other revenue stream, a whole other business, a whole other idea that hasn't been done before. So as a chaser of butterflies myself and always coming up with new ideas, you know, it's the discipline to kind of step back and have a folder for the someday one day maybe kind of ideas. And if there's still an idea in a month's time, maybe throw $100 at them and see what happens. If they're still around in 3 months, if they're still around in 6 months, but don't take your eye off the prize. Don't take your eye off the ball, because business is hard, right? Like it takes a while for an idea to germinate. It takes a while for something to happen. So you need to, coming back to the resilience, you need to be prepared to kind of hang in there and test, measure, tweak, test, measure, tweak until you kind of hit that little river, and then you'll take off. And thank you for the book. It's called The End of Technophobia, A Practical Guide to Digitizing Your Business.
Oh, I love that. And I think every small business needs to read that. And Josh, what do you think?
I just have to throw the hand up there because all these responses have been so spot on. And it's just inspiring to hear across so many different levels of people in business that we all are encouraging the same level of understanding. The one thing that I really wanted to add to is that a fundamental reason for success in business is your ability to build relationships with people. Like, you can be in a saturated market, you can find a point of difference, but if you get on the phone and they pick you up and, to put it quite frankly, don't know how to communicate well in any way, shape or form, not just in a personal relationship, but in a business building relationship, it's going to fundamentally ruin everything you had. And I'm sure if you've stepped into a cafe, bar, or restaurant, they might have the best coffee in the right location, but if you treat it like death, you're not coming back. It's as simple as that. And I'm sure, Mike, with your team, you would have had a huge element of that with customer service, which I don't really like. I think customer service is a bit of a dirty word. I use customer experience.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm serving people, I'm providing them with something. It's paramount to do that. And it's a whole host of things. But I think at the top, we need to make sure we know essentially how to talk to people.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. There's a fantastic question here from Michaela Ryan. She said, I have nearly finished setting up my business and I'm getting to launch my first product in late 2021. So it's coming up, I'm sure. Along my long journey to get to this point, I have been the victim of the tall poppy syndrome so many times. Other people giving me unfair criticism because they're jealous of me for being a highly skilled or following my dreams. Have you guys dealt with this? And we'll start with Mike, and I guess give us a bit of an insight from your experience how to deal with this kind of.
It's so much easier now that I've achieved a large business and moved on and achieved a second large business. So much easier. As I was building my first businesses, all of my family, to an absolute person, didn't understand or know what I was doing. They constantly thought I was crazy, told me I was crazy, and there were the naysayers are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. You've got to learn to recognize them and just ignore them. And they are everywhere. They honestly are. You do need to get your partner in life on board. There's no doubt about that. I think if you don't do that, you've got a problem. But look, honestly, nobody really understood what I was doing. I knew exactly what my market was, where it was, and how I was going to go about it. I hadn't told anybody. I couldn't tell anybody because you don't talk like that to people. So I knew what I was going to do, and I just learned that I'm about negative and positive. I'm really into the power of positive thinking. The naysayers were all going at it, and they are so well informed. That's why they're saying it, and I've just learned to ignore that. Got to say that even in the big world that we're in now, you can be very careful, especially with this world of social media and stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there that you believe that is simply not right. I've got to tell you, and you've got to be careful of the naysayers. They just love telling everybody what is absolute crap, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Mike, and you're spot on there. I think you have to build a thick skin, that's for sure. I know, Dante, you experienced the same thing. Do you want to add of what you just shared earlier in the conversation?
This comes up a lot. It's called Imposter Syndrome, where we actually allow that thing to creep in and tell us, who the hell do I think I am? I'm stepping up here in front of the 100 people and who do I think I am doing this? Oh, I feel like a total fraud. Now, you sound like you've actually got that together, which is great, because you don't sound like you've got that problem. You've just got the people all trying to hit you. I think it's where you build that titanium skin. So think of that Sia song, Titanium. It's all about all those bullets coming in to try and hit you, and they just bounce straight off you. You've built a really strong muscle around that. So keep being titanium. I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, that's fantastic. You just have to be Superman. Cool. Go ahead, Tracy, what do you think?
So I just wanted to add to that, beware the survey of one. So in business, we will always get that one person that wants to tell us we're doing something wrong. So make sure when you're ready to launch, and hopefully you took some of Mike's advice on there about testing the market, developing that minimum viable product, and know that you're on the right path, and it sounds like you are, get a beta tester group people around you of your ideal clients, of the ones that you absolutely know, like Mike identified with MiniMovers, that are going to move within that 15K, they're doing it themselves. Get a core group of those people around them. And if they're telling you you're on the wrong path, then step back and take a look. Otherwise, Dante quoted from Sia, I'll quote from the great Taylor Swift, the hater's going to hate.
I love that. Absolutely. Go. All right, Nathan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that everything everyone said is so spot on, Agatha. I would just encourage Michaela to use it as fuel for the journey, use it to spur you on, but also be mindful of who you surround yourself with. I think it's really important that you surround yourself with people who are spurring you on in your journey, but also those who have perhaps gone before you, those who have had success in an area where you're hoping to have success. And build almost an unofficial board of advisors. So have your accountant, have someone who's specializes in marketing, have someone who's built a business. Maybe even reach out to Mike for some input in that area. But have people around you who are spurring you on, who are speaking positivity and encouragement into your journey as you perhaps go down a path that doesn't look doesn't look too clear to start with, but it's going to get clearer as you go.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, and Josh, would you like to say something just to quickly to wrap that up as well, please?
Yeah, no worries. Everything that's said is spot on. I think at the back end of it all, it's just having a very clear vision of what you want, what's important to you, and make that for you alone. Don't think about, anyone else but you in that particular point in time. What is it that makes you happy? What drives you? Where do you want to be? And then finding that surrounding, like instead of that support network who will facilitate that and nurture it. One of my biggest clients is a publisher here in Australia, and I deal with a lot of the authors going through creating a book to life, and they deal with a lot of naysayers, a lot of those sort of things. And I said, this is why we're here. We're here to support that journey because we understand what you're going through. And I think that's very important in small business, to spend time not only figuring out what you want to the T, allowing adaptability to be a big part of that process and resilience, and then surrounding yourself with that market.
Absolutely. And of course, having to say that, so any one of you, if you need a one-on-one and having that advisory, that's exactly what this program is all about, is book one-on-one with, our advisors. We got Tracy, Dante, Nathan, and Joshua here. And, I put through the links how to book them. And I am mindful about time. Mike, would you like to have a bit of a last word summary of the session and what a takeaway from today?
I talked today about how I developed an absolute burning desire to build a money machine to fuel my lifestyle. So today I've talked about self, about me. That was my goal for me. When I started my business, I discovered that my people in the business didn't share that goal. They did not share the goal of making the boss rich. And therefore, I treated the business the same way I would treat myself. I gave it a goal of its own, a goal that the people in the business would achieve and would follow and head towards, that it became the burning desire. When I say burning desire, I'll walk over broken glass to get there. Absolutely, totally burning desire. And therefore, so next webinar, next time, we're going to do a similar thing about a diff rate, but this time we're going to do it from a business perspective. When the business gets a life of its own, because it's been given a goal and what those goals are and why the people got in and the systems and processes that made it all work. And it's because the business had a burning desire to be somewhere as well, but it was different than my self goal.
I love it. Absolute spot on. And there was like one full sentence, very powerful. All right. So thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Dante, Nathan, Josh, and Tracy. Again, Business Station through the Asbest Digital Solutions are delivering these webinars. And then there's, of course, next week, same time on Friday as well with Mike and the Super Advisors. We also delivering series of other webinars, online and face-to-face workshops, and also one-on-one advisory to help small business. All right, thank you guys, and see you next week. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.